Hey there, ballers. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Welcome to our Monday edition of our show. I'm your host, Joe Grado. Thank you for kicking off a fresh week with us here at Bases, Barrels, and Ball Players. Today is Monday, July 21st, and we're going to recap and do a quick trip around the league of what went down in baseball over the weekend as we are back fresh off the All-Star break for the second half of the season. We'll be sure to also give you some things to look ahead to for this week, at least for the first half in terms of series from Monday through Wednesday. And we also will take a little bit of time to discuss a pretty special ceremony that took place over the weekend in Queens as the New York Mets honored former third baseman and captain David Wright by having his jersey retired, becoming the 11th Mets player in franchise history to have their number retired, as well as being inducted into the New York Mets Hall of Fame. So lots to talk about and unpack on today's show. We're excited to be back talking ball to kick off the week. Hope you enjoy what we have to share after the opening music. Let's get to it. Let's play ball. All right. Thank you again, Ballers fans, for joining us on today's show. We appreciate you starting your week with us. Lots of baseball to talk about. But before we get to that, we want to give you a reminder where you can find us aside from wherever you listen to your podcast regularly, like Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, all of that good stuff. You'll be able to hear Bases, Barrels, and Ball Players as well. But be sure to also follow along with our content that we do post on our social media sites. So on Instagram at Bases Barrels Ball Players, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Bases Barrels 25. And be sure to check us out on our YouTube channel at Bases Barrels Ball Players. Yellow logo, just like you'll see behind me. Be sure to check out all of our video baseball content that we continue to upload and create. And to become an official subscriber, be sure to subscribe to us on our Patreon site, patreon.com/bases barrels ball players for just $2 a month. You'll be entered to win monthly Bases, Barrels, and Ball Players t-shirts, MLB autograph memorabilia, future MLB ticket giveaways, and so much more as we are able to grow this thing collaboratively, growing the game to new heights. All right, let's get to the first topic at hand, and let's take a quick trip around the league and what went down over the weekend. So we will just let you know the results. Not going to get into too much detail here. Just don't want to read off a bunch of stats and all that. Just want to get you all caught up to speed so that you know how your favorite team or your favorite team's opponents did over the weekend. And then you can kind of do the fun calculations of where you're at in the season as we are in the back half of this 162 stretch. So we will start out in Wrigley as the Cubs welcomed in the Red Sox for a 3-game set. And all of these series are 3-game sets as it was fresh off the All-Star break. All teams resumed play on Friday evening, or I think there was a couple day games actually, but it was on Friday nonetheless. So first we'll start in Chicago. Cubs, they take 2 out of 3. They win 4-1 and 6-0 before dropping the game 3, the final of this 3-game set 6-1. Over in Pittsburgh, the Chicago White Sox, they get a rare sweep of a 3-game set on the weekend on the road in Pittsburgh against the Pirates. They won 10-1, 10-4, and 7-2. They certainly came out swinging. Shout out to them. I saw Mike Tauchman hit one into the river. It was an absolute bomb. Over in the nation's capital, the Washington Nationals would host the San Diego Padres, and the Padres would continue to take care of business. So they win this series by taking 2 out of 3. They won game 1 7-2 before dropping the middle one 4-2 before rebounding and taking the rubber match of this series 8-1. Over in Philly, the Phillies would welcome in the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Always fun when Mike Trout and Bryce Harper, the former MVPs, link up. It would be the Angels, however, in this one, taking this series on the road 2 out of 3, winning game 1 6-5 before dropping the middle one 9-5 to the Phillies and rebounding to win Sunday 8-2. North of the border we go as Toronto looks to keep its hot play going, and they do. They sweep the San Francisco Giants 4-0, 6-3, and 8-6. They continue to build and have a 10-game home winning streak at the Rogers Center and a 3-game lead over the second-place New York Yankees. To Queens we go, and it's a celebration of the past as the Mets honor David Wright, the former captain and third baseman, by retiring his jersey prior to their game against the Cincinnati Reds on Saturday. There was lots of emotion in the ballpark, and we'll talk about it here shortly However, the result did not carry over in a positive way for the Metropolitans in the W column. The Reds spoiled the celebration and take 2 out of 3. They win game 1 and 2, 8-4 and 5-2 on David Wright Day before dropping a tight 3-2 contest in Sunday's finale. Off to Cleveland we go. The Guardians, who have been playing better of late, take 2 out of 3 against the Athletics. They win 8-6, lose 8-2 before rebounding and winning 8-2 on Sunday's game. David Fry crushes lefties, and the Guardians don't look now, have won 8 of their last 10. Down the South Beach we go. The Marlins look to keep swimming upwards as they welcomed in the Kansas City Royals, and they continue to take series. They take this one 2 out of 3 by winning 8-7 and 3-1 before dropping the Sunday finale 7-4. Up to Atlanta, the Yankees would be in town to take on the Braves. They would take 2 out of 3, losing game 1 7-3 before storming back in game 2 in an electrifying 12-8 game, capped off with a Trent Grisham grand slam and winning the series Sunday with a 4-2 victory. Out to the Rocky Mountains we go. In Colorado, how about the Rockies with a rare series victory? They're having a tough series. That's a nice way for them to come out of the break. For the Rockies faithful, they take 2 out of 3 against the Minnesota Twins. They would win 6-4 and 10-6 before the Twins avoided the sweep with a 7-1 victory on Sunday. Minnesota, what is you doing? Up in the Pacific Northwest, the Seattle Mariners would welcome in the first place Houston Astros and take 2 out of 3 to inch a little bit closer in the AL West division. They won game 1 6-1 and game 2 7-6 before Houston would rally back to avoid the sweep and win the rubber match 11-3. To the desert we go. The Arizona Diamondbacks have been dealing with a lot of chatter over the last couple of weeks around being sellers at the trade deadline, with guys like Eugenio Suarez, Merrill Kelly, and Zach Gallen being in trade rumors and them being on the last years of their contracts. The guys in that clubhouse, they're trying to show management they are still in this fight. They come out of the break and they sweep the St. Louis Cardinals 7-3, 10-1, and 5-3. Talk about making a statement and wanting to stay in the postseason race. Off to La La Land, the Dodgers and Milwaukee Brewers would square off. It would be the Brew Crew putting in work here and sweeping the reeling Dodgers. They win 2-0, 8-7, and 6-5. Brewers move into a tie of first place in the NL Central with the Cubbies. And finally, our journey comes to a halt in the heart of Texas in Arlington as the Rangers welcome in the best team in baseball, the Detroit Tigers. The Rangers end up taking 2 out of 3, winning 2-0 and 4-1 before dropping a pitcher's duel on Sunday Night Baseball 2-1. That's your wrap on what went down in baseball over the weekend. So we are just going to briefly talk about a couple teams, actually a few teams here. We'll talk about 3 teams. We're going to choose 2 teams of the week, and then we are going to make an honorable mention because there were some strong performances over the weekend and give our thoughts. So we're going to start out in the desert first, and our first team of the week is going to be the Arizona Diamondbacks. And just want to give them a quick applause there. You know, the Diamondbacks, obviously not too far removed from the 2023 World Series appearance, and then obviously missing out on the postseason by a game or a virtual tie because they finished in the tie for that final spot last year but lost out on the tiebreaker. And now they're just right at that even 50-50 mark. So it seems like, you know, the Diamondbacks are kind of in a weird spot. Seem like some regression is happening here. But you just wonder what those rumors will do inside of a clubhouse, right? So I guess you can look at it in 1 to 2 ways. You can either have a team that accepts its fate, kind of starts imploding around the trade deadline, makes management's decision a little bit easier there. However, I do believe that what the Arizona Diamondbacks did this weekend, and it's going to be important that they continue this momentum moving forward over this week. If they want to stay in this race and they want to keep in-house and avoid selling the farm, for lack of a better term, they got to keep winning. And obviously this is a good start. I think it made a statement because the St. Louis Cardinals, they were, I believe it was 3 games ahead. Yeah, there must have been 3 games up on the Diamondbacks in the wild card standing. So, and obviously the Padres are in that 3rd and final spot, but you can't jump every team at once. You got to start somewhere. And I think the Diamondbacks took a huge step forward here. They're now 4.5 out of that final wild card spot, and they're only a game behind St. Louis. They're 2 games behind the Giants and 2 games behind the Reds. So they've really caught up. They're catching steam, and let's see how this week goes. But I wanted to give them a shout out as the first team of the week because I just feel like there's been so much rumor and speculation. Like I've been hearing Eugenio Suarez. There's interest from the Seattle Mariners and the Yankees to make a trade for him. And here, Merrill Kelly might be on the move, and Zach Gallen. So that's one aspect, like I said, where you can implode and let those rumors finish the job. Then there's that other half where the competitor in you is like, oh no, there's plenty of baseball here still to be played. It's not like you're one of those teams that's 12, 13, 14, 15 games out. You're still within striking distance. And I understand baseball is a business. And so you have to operate business that makes sense for the present and the future too as well. So I don't think the Arizona Diamondbacks should necessarily, they shouldn't be in a position to buy. That's not the argument I'm trying to make here. I just don't think they should sell everything that they have. And I understand what's going to attract you to want to move some of these pieces as, Suarez, Kelly, and Gallen. Those 3 guys are on expiring contracts. So I understand you can get a pretty good haul for that. It would have to be the right move. But I just think especially if the Diamondbacks have such a solid week here, because there's still, I believe, 10 days until the trade deadline. If they go over this week with another winning week, how are you going to look that team in the eye? Well, you still have that core of guys that were on that World Series team, just missed out on the postseason last year. And if they're truly going to get on the second half heater and it's going to kind of look different moving forward next year in terms of this club, why not have one more shot at it? And, maybe if you want to move one of those pieces, but I wouldn't move all. And I don't know. I just think with what they've got cooking right now, and Suarez is having a magical year, would love to see. And obviously, if Suarez is getting moved, he's going to be in a postseason race as well. But would love to see if the way he keeps hitting home runs, he had another multi-homer game over the weekend. He continues hitting home runs at this volume. I think he's so comfortable there. I think he's so liked in that clubhouse. You wonder if getting traded somewhere else, that adjustment to a new environment might affect his production. You don't want to affect a great season too as well. So there's a lot of reasons where, the business side of things probably says, yeah, let's sell off a little bit. But the competitor in me, the former baseball player in me would say, stay put, minimal deals. It would have to be a terrific deal to pull the plug. And obviously if the Diamondbacks implode this week and really fall out of it, then it kind of makes that decision a little bit easier. So it's nice that it seems like over these next 10 days, their fate is in their hands. And let's see what they go do with it over this week. We'll see. And I think they got Houston this week. So that'll be a tough task. But if they go out there and win another series, who knows? We'll see. It'll really have the baseball operations crew have to have some discussions that they didn't think they would have to have with the way the season was navigating for the Diamondbacks at first. So they're our first team of the week. We just love the resiliency that they showed over the weekend and coming out of the second half with a purpose and wanting to get back into this postseason race. So we'll see what this next week or 10 days looks like, and our tune may change here in one way or the other. And then our other team of the week, it's going to be out in the NL Central, the Milwaukee Brewers. They didn't just win the series. They swept the series. They won not one, not two, 3 games at Dodger Stadium, a tall task in itself against the former champs. Dodgers are really reeling a little bit right now. It was a very competitive series with 2 of those games being decided by 1 run and then game 1 being 2-0. Very competitive, very fun series. 2 teams that you can definitely see knot up and meet again in the postseason. But the Brewers, great opportunity there. They seized it, and now they move into a tie for first place with the Chicago Cubs. And I do think that's going to be an exciting division race all the way through the end. So whenever the Brewers can get wins like this and series victories, puts more pressure on the Cubs. Because obviously they're looking and they see, oh, Brewers just won 3 against the Dodgers. We got to take care of our business here. So, and it's obviously going to go back and forth, vice versa. I do see both of those teams making the postseason, but obviously it's a little bit easier of a path if you win your division. You get a little bit more home field advantage in that way. So it's important in that fashion. But it's going to be a fun race. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the series like we predicted in our previous show that ends up with a game 163 to determine the division. I do think those teams are going to be going back and forth, and it'll be very exciting baseball. So if you have an opportunity to check out some Brewers Cubs games, especially when those 2 teams go up against each other, it should be absolute baseball theater. So they are our other team of the week this week. And then we wanted to give an honorable mention. We want to, because we don't know if we're going to be able to shout them out again. And we were very impressed with what they did. And obviously, not against the strongest opponent, but in all kindness, neither are they. The Chicago White Sox are our honorable mention team of the week. They sweep a 3-game series in Pittsburgh against the Pirates. They dominated. They scored 10 runs in 2 of them, and then in the game 3, they went 7-2. Every game was won in convincing fashion. Shout out to them. I know they've been through some hard times. Last year, they had a really miserable season. But you can see they're starting to turn a corner. It's not perfect on the scoreboard, but you're seeing they're winning a lot more games than they did last year, and they're in a lot more games than they were last year. So shout out their manager, Will Venables, former big leaguer. I think they're playing hard for him, and I think there's finally a plan in motion for some of these prospects that are making their way to the big league level and gelling together. So we'll see. They'll be an interesting factor at the deadline too as well. They have a couple of pieces that we'll see if teams are interested in like a Luis Robert Jr., who's been rumored in trade dealings for the last couple of years. Not necessarily having the strongest of seasons, but you wonder if a change of scenery of him can help him get back to his previous all-star form. So they'll be sellers, if anything, but I don't think they're anything drastic. They're going to just look to continue to aid in their rebuild. Don't know how active they'll necessarily be. Maybe they'll get a couple of those arms plucked out of their bullpen. Maybe Mike Tauchman is a left-handed bat option as a trade option. We'll have to see as we get a little bit closer. All right, let's switch our focus here. That caps our trip around the league from this past weekend. Gave out a couple of teams of the week and honorable mention. Now let's move ahead forward. On Saturday, July 18th, the 19th, the Mets honored former third baseman and their captain, David Wright. They inducted them into the New York Mets Hall of Fame, along with retiring his jersey number 5. Certainly, it was an emotional day in Queens for Mets fans. There were lots of old familiar faces there in the building. His old friend and teammate, Jose Reyes. Cliff Floyd was there. Michael Kadire. Daniel Murphy. His old managers, Willie Randolph and Terry Collins. His family was there, and his kids are soaking in the moment, very cute as well. A lot of and Howard Johnson as well. Don't want to leave him out. Definitely a lot of tears were shed, it seemed like. Had the opportunity to watch it on Saturday, so just wanted to see a blast from the past. It was cool. Obviously, being from the East Coast and being over in the New York, New Jersey area at that time. So just getting to really relive some of those moments when being over in that hub. Wasn't a Mets fan, but a baseball fan. So it was cool to see some of those old highlights, especially the ones of Old Shea Stadium before Citi Field. I don't know if most people might not even know what that stadium is, unless you are a Mets fan or a baseball fan. That Citi Field's been around since I believe 2008, so pre-2008. If you have any memory of Shea Stadium, would love to hear from the chat, especially any comments that you'd like to share about David Wright, your favorite memories or anything like that. Definitely one of the game's good guys and one of the franchise's all-time greats. David Wright, he was originally drafted by the New York Mets in 2001 as the 38th overall pick. Less than 3 years later from that moment, he made his MLB debut on July 20th, 2004 against the Montreal Expos, who are now the Washington Nationals. Didn't get a hit on that night, but the following day, he would collect his first major league hit on July 21st via a double off of reliever Zach Day. Wright was a 7-time All-Star and safely hit in 6 of those All-Star games, including leaving the yard via a home run in his first career All-Star game off of left-handed pitcher Kenny Rogers, who was with the Detroit Tigers at that point. In his career, David Wright, he hit .296 for a career batting average, 242 home runs, 970 RBIs, 949 runs scored, 390 doubles, 1,777 hits, and 196 stolen bases with an .867 OPS. Amongst the New York Mets franchise ranks, he's third all-time in home runs, he's first in hits, doubles, RBIs, and runs scored, and he's fourth all-time in stolen bases. David Wright is the example and testament to will in overcoming serious injuries, including a chronic back injury that kept flaring up, which unfortunately forced him to retire in 2018. But he had to get out to the field for one more time to give the fans one last chance to see him in the Mets uniform and to shower him with applause. And that's not why he did it. He just wanted to prove that he can get back onto the field and be healthy and leave the field on his own two legs. Like, you don't want it to be ended with not being able to play due to a surgery and not even getting the opportunity to get back out there. Now, obviously, he suited it back up for only one more game, and that back injury is why he couldn't continue forward. But that's the lasting memory that Mets fans and baseball fans everywhere will remember, is him in a uniform, not on the sidelines. And obviously, that is a big part of his career. Over his first 10 seasons, he looked like he was well on his way to the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, but he started breaking down year after year, missing time. Over the last portion of his career, after those 10 seasons, he only played 212 games after that, which is really unfortunate because he was really well on his way. Who knows what his numbers would have been? I think could have definitely been a 400 home run guy. Would have been 400 home runs, 200 stolen bases. I would say at least over 2,000 hits. And who knows, maybe he would have been a 300 plus hitter, and we might be talking about David Wright, the National Baseball Hall of Fame. But we'll never know that. And I think he can rest his head on his pillow at night knowing he put together a fantastic career after you hear the career stats I had and his franchise ranks amongst the New York Mets pantheon, like I mentioned. He was coined Captain America due to his heroics in the World Baseball Classic. I believe it was back in 2012. He hit a 2-run walk-off hit to send the U.S. to a semifinal, and they were 3 outs from elimination. He was a big part of that. Was very clutch in that World Baseball Classic. Was also known for his heroics in a Mets uniform, including getting one last opportunity to be part of a postseason run in the 2015 season, where they went up in the World Series against the Kansas City Royals. The Royals ended up winning that World Series in 6, but nevertheless, David Wright got to have his postseason, his World Series moment. He hit a home run during Game 3 of that series, which led to a New York Mets victory. And just wanted to say that, congrats to David Wright. And it's definitely a well-deserved honor. And seeing him definitely brought up some, blasts from the past of baseball that I watched growing up. Him coming up in 2004, 2005, that was peak Little League years for me, travel ball, and got to see the majority of all of his career. And he was the captain of the Mets for so long, and he was just the example of how you should be on and off the field. Quality player on the field, quality person off of it. And that's what it means to be a professional. And the New York Yankees had Derek Jeter as their example, as their captain, who set the standard and obviously set a different championship standard. But the New York Mets had their David Wright, and not necessarily as much fortune on the field in terms of championship standard, but I think you would say he handled himself professionally just as well as Jeter did off the field. Very charismatic, always had time and patience for the media, understood that everyone had a job to do. So in that matter, I think he was Jeter-like. Obviously on the field, the significant gap, but I think Wright was a testament to the will of overcoming serious obstacles in his way and overcoming heartbreak and being a Mets fan and legend forever. So just want to congratulate him. It's a huge honor. He becomes the 11th person in Mets history to have his number retired and the 35th person to be inducted into the New York Mets Hall of Fame. So congrats to David Wright, number 5 forever. And hopefully those are memories that last a lifetime in front of family, some of his old friends and teammates and best friends and his old agent. Just a beautiful moment in Queens. Wish they would have gotten the victory on David Wright Day too as well. But they certainly did a very heartfelt and solid ceremony. I thought the Mets handled their business very well there, honoring a franchise legend. So congrats to David Wright. All right, before we get on out of here, just going to give you a few things to watch this week as you are tuning in and getting ready for a fresh week of baseball. Yankees, Blue Jays battling it up in the north of the border. Blue Jays coming riding high on a 10-game home winning streak and including a 3-game sweep over this weekend, and they hold a 3-game advantage over the New York Yankees in the American League East Division. Aaron Judge, he's batting .372 lifetime with 6 home runs against Kevin Gausman, who is the scheduled starter for the Blue Jays in tonight's game. Padres, Marlins, another enticing series in terms of postseason potential implications. The Marlins have won 4 of their last 5 and opened tonight 7.5 behind San Diego for that final wild card spot. They have an opportunity to chip into that deficit if they take care of business at home. Jesus Sanchez of the Marlins is 2 for 4 with a home run lifetime off of Randy Vasquez, who is the San Diego starter tonight. Red Sox, Phillies at the bank. Red Sox come in winning 11 of 14 as the Phillies look to get back on track, lined up with their 1-2-3 of Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, and Jesus Luzardo to kick off a fresh week. Astros, Diamondbacks out in the desert. Astros come in losing 7 of 9, and Diamondbacks look to keep their home winning streak alive, and as well as keeping their pieces in-house to make a run for the postseason, fresh off of a 3-game sweep of the St. Louis Cardinals. And those are our 4 series of highlights. We'll be sure to recap them as best as we can on Friday's show and give you some more to look forward ahead at that point. Before we get on out of here and wrap it up, we are going to make our home run prediction as we might have given it away at the What to Watch For this week, but we are going to predict Aaron Judge will hit at least 1 home run in this series up in Toronto against the Blue Jays. Does have good lifetime numbers against Gausman, but he does just seem to love hitting at the Rogers Center. He did hit that maple leaf, I remember a couple of years back, broke that. So he sees the ball well there, and I do think that trend will continue. This is a big series for the Yankees. They have an opportunity to get back, at least in a tie for the AL East division. With the Blue Jays being up 4-0 in the season series, it's important for the Yankees to try to claw back and at least get a couple to narrow the gap in case that comes down to a tiebreaker at year's end. So some exciting baseball to watch on tap. Looking forward to talking all about it once again at the end of this week with all of you. And with that, that concludes another edition of Bases, Barrels, and Ballplayers. So we took a trip around the league, letting you know what went down over the weekend, fresh off of the All-Star break. Some highs, some lows. We gave you our teams of the week as the Arizona Diamondbacks and Milwaukee Brewers received our honors, our ballers teams of the week, with our honorable mention being the Chicago White Sox, who swept the Pittsburgh Pirates in a road series in a 3-game sweep out there. The New York Mets, they had a special ceremony honoring former third baseman and captain David Wright. They inducted him into the Mets Hall of Fame, as well as retiring his patented number 5 jersey, becoming the 11th Mets player in franchise history to have their number retired. And we predicted that Aaron Judge would homer in the series coming up this week against the Toronto Blue Jays. He's got 6 home runs lifetime against Kevin Gausman and just loves hitting at the Rogers Center. So we're taking a pretty safe bet there. Then we just gave you a few series to look forward to over the first half of this week. We'll be back on Friday to recap what went down over the first series of this week. We'll give you some more to look forward to over the weekend. We'll even talk some trade deadline as well. Obviously, this Friday will be rather close to the trade deadline approaching, so we want to see what other rumors have come about over this week, see if any moves have occurred between today's and Friday's show, and then we'll give some predictions. We'll make it all fun and all of that good stuff. So with that, that's another edition of Bases, Barrels, and Ballplayers. I'm your host, Joe Grado. Thank you for kicking off your week with us here. We love talking ball with you. We're so happy to be back, and we'll be back again behind the mic with you on Friday's show. Let's grow the game to new heights. Hope you all have a great rest of your day and a great start to your week, enjoying some baseball all across the league. Play ball.